Hi, this is Dr. Michael Gervais, high performance psychologist with Finding Mastery, and I'm excited to share the episode that we did with Sleep, Eat, Perform, Repeat.
Coming up on Sleep, Eat, Perform, Repeat.
So the world is evidenced by the Great Resignation. The world is saying, I'm not doing this anymore the way I was doing it. Well, the reason that this is happening is because we have failed to explore and to apply this beautiful science of psychology. So our minds are our greatest asset, but if uninvested, it's an asset it's weak. And so the world is saying, I'm resigning from the way I'm doing life. And it's not the physical experience that they're in. It's not the external conditions for the most part. It's the internal conditions.
We are really, really excited to share this episode with you. When we think of the perfect guest for Sleep, Eat, Perform, Repeat, Dr. Michael Gervais was never far away in our minds, so we're absolutely thrilled to have him on the show today. Michael has also generously given the listeners of the show the opportunity to win an exclusive prize. He's given away 2 places on his online course, Finding Your Best, which is a true masterclass for your mind. It's a course curated by high performance psychologist Dr. Michael Gervais, but also by NFL head coach Pete Carroll. You'll learn how to craft your own personal philosophy, set a vision, and apply the skills of confidence, optimism, calm, and mindfulness in your everyday life. You'll also learn 12 other essential mindset principles. So this is a prize worth over $500 each, and we're going to give out details on how to win it on our Instagram page at Sleep, Eat, Perform, Repeat. In order to get ahead of the game, you can check out Michael's page at Michael Gervais and also at Finding Mastery. Have a follow there, and we'll be resharing information on the competition very soon. But not to delay, let's get to the episode with the renowned Dr. Michael Gervais.
Wealth, lessons and learnings.
Today we spoke with Dr. Michael Gervais, performance psychologist, host of the Finding Mastery podcast and co-founder of Compete to Create. As a licensed psychologist and industry visionary, Dr. Gervais has focused most of his time on people at the top of their game, from the NFL Seattle Seahawks and NBA players to Olympians, military personnel and corporate leaders. Spending years in the trenches of high-stakes circumstances, Dr. Gervais has developed clarity for the tools that allow people to thrive under pressure. He's a published peer-reviewed author and an internationally recognized speaker on issues related to high performance for those who excel on the largest stages in the world. Compete to Create is a mindset and culture accelerant company with the mission of helping people find their best. The course, co-founded by Coach Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks and Michael, focuses on mindset skills to help people become their very best. Michael often talks about how we can train our body, our craft, our mind. We are currently undertaking his Founding Your Best online course and find it fantastic. Today we start with the origins of Michael's surname, the culinary delights in his household. We dig into why alignment makes more sense for Michael rather than balance for high performers, personal philosophy, values, his feelings about legacy, and what is lighting up the dragon in Michael. He asked us our definition of high performance, which was fun. Every day is an opportunity to create a living masterpiece, as he says.
Dr. Michael Gervais, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for taking the time to speak with the 2 of us today.
Stoked to be here with you guys. Thanks for including me in your community.
Her and I were talking actually before the call, Michael. You know, us as Irish people are always very interested in history and where people have come from and Irish ancestry and so forth. And, you know, we like to claim a lot of you over here, certain presidents like Biden and JFK and Obama, of course. But we're curious as to the origins of your surname, because that's what really stood out to us nearly when we were doing the little bit of prep for the show today.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. I don't get asked that often enough. So I've got some Irish roots, as you might appreciate, but not indicated by my surname. So the surname is Gervais, and we did a whole family dig, or our family did a dig into where that came from. And come to find out, it's obviously a French origin. And come to find out, we think it's actually traced back to North American Indian heritage. So how could that possibly happen? Well, so the name Gervais was French-Canadian, and there was tremendous, dangerous times for American Indians at certain point in the U.S. And so we think our ancestors adopted the name Gervais to be able to get over the border And so
Wow.
we've got some Native American roots. We've got on the other side of my family, it's Italian, and then Irish. So, but the name is a bit of a mystery because we don't track back to kind of the origins of France.
Molto bene, Michael. Molto
Yeah.
bene.
Some Irish hardiness as well.
Yeah, we don't lack passion and like a little kind of inner fire. We do not lack that in this family.
And Michael, what would be the go-to dish of cuisine in that household, considering the lovely mixture of gastronomy and culture?
For me, I mean, the Italian. I identify with my Italian roots more than the others, just because my grandfather took such a large presence in my life, and he's Sicilian. And then my wife is Cuban, half El Salvadorian. And so I think we have more Cuban meals in the house than we do Italian because I'm not chefing things up like she can and her family can. So that would be the go-to.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like anything's wrong there. Cuban and a mix of Italian.
Like I said, the fire's unreal over here.
So you grew up in Warrington, Virginia, a small town. Is that right?
Yeah. And so that was a really small town. Dirt roads, no streetlights. Neighbors were a long way away. We had like 30 acres behind us in our yard, and so it was definitely Spartan, and we learned a lot from the land. And my parents in the 70s were kind of the classic, let's drop out of the city and go find ourselves. And so they found there's themselves and I guess me in a small little town called Warrenton. It was awesome. It was a great place to grow up.
What was the value of growing up in that small town approach? And did it inform much of how you live your life today?
Well, I didn't know it at the time. I was just a little rug rat, running around kind of in the bluegrass hills in Virginia, which are, they're beautiful. But my parents were very laissez-faire. And so rules were infrequent and they're kind of like Italian road rules. They're just more suggestions,
Yep.
right? So, there are very few rules, but Mother Nature is an incredible teacher. And so I had to figure out at a young age how to be attuned to be able to, not get hurt and kind of whipped around by the consequences of Mother Nature. And I'm talking like at 5, 6, 7 years old. And so there was, just looking back, it was an incredible way to dig my toenails and fingernails into the dirt and figure out what Mother Nature had to teach. And so not that long, it was like 13, we moved to California, and it was definitely a culture shock. And then the speed of the city life was definitely like, whoa, this is different. People are different here. They don't kind of lounge and chill. They're actually really motivated towards something along the sides of social climbing or business development, or like there's all these other motives that I had to figure out as a 13-year-old kid.
With regards to the navigation there, I mean, we're always talking about speed of life and people being busy, stuck in your work, as it were, especially when you're all go in a professional sport environment or in that kind of high pressure corporate world. Michael, what's it about striking the balance? Like, how can we find that balance?
Well, I think I'm not sure the balance. I don't know how to teach from balance. So I'm probably not the right person there, but I can teach from alignment. I can teach from being able to harmoniously work with the speed of the present moment. And so I can definitely pull the covers off of that and get into it. But balance, I actually don't know anyone that has balance. In elite sport, it is, and big business, it is fast. And the amount of time required to meet the demands and meet the opportunities and challenges, it just deeply requires an all-in perspective. So when I think of balance, I think of it to be a mythical ridgeline. Like it doesn't, I've never experienced it, so I don't know it. But the alignment thing is to line up our thoughts, words, and actions. And when we can line up our thoughts, words, and actions in any given moment, then we are not pulled. And there's an alignment, which is like the tensile strength of alignment from a psychological perspective is remarkable. And so our work is to know what optimized or ideal thoughts, words, and actions are, and to line those up. And so how do we do that? Well, first we need great awareness of what's happening on the inside, and so that we can eloquently manage the external demands. And if you have that inside out, outside in perspective, and you're working from both, the present moment is like a raindrop. Just follow the analogy here for a minute with me, is that as a raindrop drops, at each segmentation, it's a new moment. And it doesn't quite hold true because eventually a raindrop hits the ground and it's over, but so too is at least our physical life. but then it transforms into something else. So in one level, it does hold, and another, we don't know what happens after our physical life ends. But if this raindrop is dropping, then our job is to be on time with the dropping. But what our mind does is something quite remarkable, is that it wants to zoom forward and zoom back and pay attention to all the things that could go wrong and entertain those stories, it's an amazing human capability to use our mind to think forward and to use our mind to think backwards. However, most people are not disciplined in the training of that radical capability. And so we spend more time in the present moment or in the past than allows for us to be on time with the falling drop, if you will. And so the alignment is when your thoughts, words, and actions are completely aligned and you're on time with the dropping of that raindrop. So when we have that alignment of thought, words, and actions, that power is so remarkable. Nobody can take it away from you. And so you end up being fully hydrated. I'll kind of extend this metaphor just one more level, hydrated in the present moment. And just like any plant, when you're fully hydrated, it's like, oh, that's how this is supposed to be. It is rare that people have the depth and the clarity of what a powerful, optimized thought is for them in context to the unfolding, unpredictable present moment. So that's where this art and science of psychology becomes fascinating, because the multitude of choices that we have to be in the present moment is exponential. So how do we choose the thoughts and the words and the actions that are fully aligned to be on time in the present, unfolding present moment? That's the game of high performance. So I wish I had a short hack for you guys, but I don't know any. And I wish I had something simpler to say than, just get a pie chart out and write down 30% of your time is going to be for family and 30% of your time is going to be for business and the other 30 is for fun. Like, I can't see it that way.
Well, thanks for the depth. We appreciate it. Just thinking into people who are facing or have faced a difficult circumstance, facing a challenge, maybe some people in war zones and uncertainty with their jobs and difficult relationships or family situations. And the present moment is quite troubling. It's quite difficult. What can they do to best face up to that challenge and bring their best self forward in order to overcome and maybe get the best outcome for everyone overall?
I love the question, especially in context of what's happening globally right now. It's a bit like there's a range, though, because it's a bit like saying, okay, 24-year-old kid, you've got your entire wealth on the line for this one-on-one pickup game with Michael Jordan. How are you going to do? Well, shit, if the kid hasn't trained and doesn't have like 1, technical skills, 2, physical skills, 3, psychological skills to manage that real risk of the financial risk and the perceived risk of, what are people going to think of me, then I wouldn't say it's probably going to be favorable for that person. But if that person's like, yeah, this is what I'm built for, this is what I've trained for, I love these types of stakes and opportunities. And you know what? I know how to work with stress. I do. I understand how to do. I know how to work with a basketball and da 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 da. So the technical craft in life is not as simple as the technical crafts in say basketball. But somebody who has invested in their inner life, they'll do just fine. But somebody who it's shell shocking brand new, they're going to have a harder time. And so it's more difficult based on the relative investment of the internal skills. So I was sharing this just the other day, is that somebody on my team was asking, like, at the end of the day, what's it like for me? And I say, some days I'm tired, some days not, but more days than not. And I'm answering emails at 10 o'clock too, just like most people that are trying to build something, is that I think I spend far less energy throughout my day because I'm able to make some choices on how much to allocate from a resource perspective. And I over-index in recovery so that I have available resources, available horsepower to be able to meet the demands, the challenges. So there's a 2-part question. One is it's commensurate based on the internal resources that you've invested in. If you've got incredible internal inventory of resources, you're probably going to be just fine. It doesn't mean it's not easy. I mean, doesn't mean it's not difficult, but you'll probably be just fine. And then the other is, over time, the resource required is a depreciating asset. So we must replenish our internal resources from an energy standpoint. And that's why you guys would recognize in high performance sport is that we spend much more time than most people would recognize talking about the science and the art of recovery. In elite sport, and just holds true with big business, is that recovery has a place at the high performance table. And 10 years ago, it maybe had a chair, but it was dusty. It was like a chair at the end of the table, rarely used. And now it is so much, the science is better, and the appreciation for the need to deploy best practices to recover, especially in the speed of our modern living, is people are waving their hands in sport, in business, and outside saying, hey, listen, I need to figure this thing out because I'm going to bed exhausted for the last 5 years as opposed to the last 5 days, maybe.
So there's no more of a dusty chair, and it's more of a lazy boy recliner. Like that's where we're getting.
Yeah, that's good.
But yeah, Michael, to your point, and obviously there's a lot in your course that talks to recovery and sleep and all those things that we kind of can control. We'd love to dig into. You touched on energy, Michael, and we as physios can understand recovery. It's kind of how we're wired. But when you're busy and you're building a business, like you are, like we are, like a lot of people listening to this are, you say yes to certain things that probably give you energy, but you have to say no to other things as well because you can't do everything, especially to a high level. So how do you figure out what to say yes to and what to say no to?
I will share a model that I use to be able to make decisions. So I'm a fan of systems thinking and frameworks for decisions, but never at the cost of intuition and never at the cost of, gut feel about something. But frameworks for the most part are really valuable. And then I'll share like an asterisk in this is that I say yes more than I say no. And so that is something that me, my family, and my team are always working on, is that as a lover of life and a lover of opportunity, I can see good in so much. And I'm excited as a general way of living. And so I think that I can do more than maybe time allows or energy systems allow. So I'm probably not a great teacher of this. Folks that are listening that know me are like, Jesus, you say yes to everything. And we're trying to constantly figure out how to shovel 10 pounds of stuff into a 5-pound bag. But so here's the framework. It's quite simple. Is I need 2 of the 3. And if I can get 3 of these, it's a home run. So think of a Venn diagram. Is the decision that I am working to make, does it have the potential to make massive impact? So if it has the potential to make massive impact, okay, cool. The second is it going to be fun? So that's a selfish thing. Like I want to spend time in an enjoyable, fun way. And then the third is the economics. So is it going to be meaningful? Is it going to be fun? Is it going to make money? And if I can get two of the 3, it's usually a yes. And so if it's meaningful and fun, I'm probably going to say yes. If it's financial and fun, I'm probably going to say yes. And then if it's meaningful, fun, and financial, I'm putting all of my resources against it. And so that's the simple framework that I make. And then if you drill down one more level, the speed of that decision is based on one-way and two-way doors. So one-way doors, measure twice, cut once. Two-way doors, just move with speed, because you know what? You can kind of reverse it back. And so those are the 2 basic frameworks that I use to help with decisions.
That's brilliant. Thanks. Look into decision making. And Daniel Pink released a book recently, The Power of Regret, and how our regrets influence what we do next, our actions and thoughts that follow. What would you recommend to people to how to frame decision making around what they've done in the past that they might not be so proud of?
Yeah. So when I think of regret, it is a circular experience that takes place that quietly or aggressively haunts. And so I understand what he is working to do. And he's actually coming on the Finding Mastery podcast. I think we're launching it in 2 weeks. So excellent. I understand the power of regret. However, there's a first principle that I've worked from for most of my adult life, which is that people say, well, okay, how? How do the extraordinaries do it? They know their pain. They're in touch with pain. And so pain is one of the most significant reasons why we change. Many of us are so busy and so terrified of dealing with and exploring and getting to know difficult emotions, a la pain, that we never get to that place. So we kind of stuff it away a little bit. It sounds so 1980, wobbly psychology, but the idea is that for regret is like, no, take the time and get in touch with the pain, the choices that you've made and the ones that you didn't make, and feel that pain so that it can inform the next opportunity that is close to what you did or didn't do as an action. So for me, to answer specifically, I it sounds trite, but I don't have regrets because I spend so much time, even like my wife and I and my inner circle, to spend so much time, my mentor and myself as an N of one, to really examine pain and to get to the truth of like, ooh, this stings. So shit was buried for me for a long time. And I'm saying into my 30s. And then I started going, okay, wait, there's a mechanism to deal with this. And that mechanism is the introspection that comes from having the courage to share what is truthful inside, to either a journal, to through a process of meditation, and or through somebody that holds wisdom. And I'm trying to practice all three. And so now I've got a much faster flywheel to get to what pain offers, which is accelerated growth. So regret is this rumination, kind of stuffed away, emotional, difficult experience. And then when you examine and get to know it, there's freedom on the other side, literally freedom. And so for me, like the regrets that I hold are when I harm others. So when my actions or inactions harm others. And I've got a whole host of them that I've experienced in my life. One of the brilliant steps in the 12-step program, I'm not a recovering or an addict in any way, but although my wife and I were exploring the other day, like, am I a workaholic? So we're kind of taking a look at that. But the idea is to get in touch with the people you've hurt and to reach out when appropriate and to apologize. That's really powerful, to free yourself from this inner circle loop that takes place, regret, shame, and guilt, where it just kind of keeps, it's almost like a joke. It just kind of keeps banging you on the head, and it circles around and bangs you on the head. And so if you can get out of that loop by examining it and taking action, there's freedom on the other side. So for me, it's anytime I hurt somebody, it's usually with words. And so the artistry of my science is to attend to words. And so I want to hold that with great significance.
To touch on words, Michael, and we're both bearing fruit of going through your course and learning about ourselves
Thank you, guys.
through the
thank
whole
you.
process, which, thoughts, words, actions, clarity, conviction, trying to find a word that sticks out from a video that really is enveloping a process. The piece that's jumped out to the two of us, and we were touching on it earlier, the personal philosophy and finding an alignment to that. And of course, you've spoken about it, you've written about it, and it's obviously part of your course and a huge part of that. But there's no doubt about it, our listeners would get so much energy and value from it, especially when stuff comes up, be that good or bad, how to live with that, suppose that guiding light, as it were. Would love for you to just, any way you'd like, just unpack how you got to defining yours, and do you even feel you live it each and every day? And if you do live up to it, great. And maybe if you don't, what does that look like?
First, I'm so stoked that you guys took the course, and so honored and excited that to know that you're doing the work and that your community members are maybe turned on to it. So philosophy is just the clarity of your guiding principles. What are your first principles in life? And you could have pages of first principles. And the idea is to pare those down into a way that you can, at least for right now, get your arms around a handful of first principles that really matter to you right now in your life. and then to put that in some sort of form, a sentence, maybe it's a word that encompasses them. And then from that clarity, to live with conviction against that requires mental skills development. So from clarity to conviction, as you mentioned, and those that live with conviction they are our heroes. They are the ones that change the world. Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Nelson Mandela. Yeah, and the list goes on. Jesus, Buddha, Confucius. The list goes on of folks that had incredible conviction everywhere they went. And it's because they were so clear with the first principles. Then they had the mental skills to be able to back it up. And so that process of going from clarity to conviction and to develop the mental skills is something that's available to every one of us right now. And it's not easy, though. And I'm mindful when I say that out loud because it's wonderful, but it does require working with the invisible. And the invisible is somewhat tricky. And so the invisible is like your thoughts, right? And so if we can go from thoughts and get them out onto a piece of paper somewhere, then we're taking the invisible, all of your thoughts that are banging around inside, and then to externalize them on a piece of paper so that you can wrestle with them and look at them and go, wait, if there's a forcing function exercise to say, what are my first principles? What are my guiding principles? These are them. Can I poetically get them into a sentence or two so that I could practice it? That's it. And then you will get challenged. If, let's say, a first principle for you is nonviolence, or a first principle is kindness. When you go into the environment where, let's say, it's fast paced, there's a bit of aggression, there's some hostility in it, and you're getting double tapped, you're looked at in a way like to defend yourself. And all of your resources and your intuitions are like to get on your front foot, to kind of raise your shoulders a little bit and square up and be like, and then you go, wait a minute, first principle, kindness. Okay, hold on. Let me get over the center part of my mass. let me actually have my eyes turn up a little bit here instead of like squinting down. And let me work from my heart. And so if you can do that, then you're living in alignment with your first principles. And then we go back full regret that when we're off mass from our first principles, even if we haven't written them down, but we're just like, oh, I don't like how I did that. Well, that's where we start to find regrets. So that's also why we need the psychological skills and the mental skills to be more calm, to be more aware of our thoughts and emotions, to have the confidence to go into a situation where we're not knocked around by the external world, but we have that private, quiet knowing that we adjust well. That's what confidence is. Like, I think I can do that. I think I can muster my technical skills and my psychological skills to meet that challenge. I think I can. It's not, oh, I know I can, because that's bullshit. We don't know we can because we've never literally been in that moment. Unless, of course, there's zero challenge in it. My 13-and-a-half-year-old son, if we're going to have a dunk contest, I'm going to beat him. Is that confidence? No,
Only
that's
now.
just like a fact. So why don't we organize our world in a way that we can learn, just like some of the greats do, is they organize their world to run to the edges of complicated, high-pressured opportunities, to work in those environments because that's where the good stuff is happening. And it doesn't mean we don't retreat to high water. It doesn't mean that. But we need to go test ourselves, because if we can only be at peace at the mountaintop, well, shit. I need to find a sense of peace and fill in the blanks in the city. And then I need to find it in intense environments. And if I can do that, I'm working towards a living masterpiece. And that's, for me, that is a first principle, to work from, a living masterpiece.
Jumping back to your last point about your wife and yourself exploring that you may be a workaholic, when are you at your best? When is Dr. Michael Gervais really firing on all cylinders, finding that alignment that you mentioned at the start of the show? And hopefully it's not just putting a poster on your son outside in the dunk contest, but where do you feel like you are bringing yourself truly, and when you're aligning with all of that?
Well, if this will sound a bit trite, but I'll give her a go with you, and you guys push back however you want. Is that I am at my best when there's a feeling inside of me that has incredible fire, and that fire isn't overrun and it's just burning really brightly. And so I'm at my best when I can harness that. And one way that I make that more concrete for others, because I realize that that's like, what is he saying? It's a little bit like a dragon. I love dragons are like one of my favorite animals, and I get the mythical joke, about it, but like I love it because they're protectors and they're aggressors, and they can breathe ridiculous fire, or they could just maybe blow a little smoke, or they've got just this warmth fire. And so it's that harnessing of that fire. It's not being run over by the fire, and it's not having the ability to conjure up the fire. Like, I don't want to lose my dragon's fire. So many men have lost their fire. And I'm not saying something where this is dangerous territory in modern life, but so many men have lost it well before some of the egregious behaviors that we are more aware of now, well before that, because we have been taught in so many ways that the aggressive nature of humanity is completely wrong. Well, there are times when aggression is required. And I can't speak for women's experience here because I am not one. And I have incredible respect for their unique genetic and psychological experiences that are different than what the three of us have had experience in life. So there's the importance of being able to know, we all have dragons. There's importance to be able to know how to have a relationship with your dragon. So when I'm at my best, my dragon is alive. When she is at her best, my wife, her dragon has all the fire that you can imagine as well. And so that is uniquely different for each person, and it's uniquely different culturally, and it's uniquely different across gender and age. And so that's a way that I think about it. Now, that's from the inside out. So everything that I'm going to answer in our conversations will be inside out, not outside in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think most people, when they answer that question, would say, when am I at my best? Oh, when, the environment's fast paced and, I'm being challenged, or when it's really calm and quiet and I can think deeply. No, I need to have the fire to be able to burn brightly wherever I go. So I am forever building this relationship with the dragon inside.
So over the next couple of months, what's lighting and exciting the fire in this dragon?
Well, it's the meaningful opportunity that the world is asking for right now. So the world, this is an outside in perspective, but the world is saying, "Hey, I need some help. I'm exhausted. I'm a bit overwhelmed. I've got so much inside of me that I feel like it's just being trapped by the way that I'm living my life. I'm 9 to 5 is like a joke, and it's like more like 8 to 11. And I am trying to figure out how to have a relationship with my children, have a relationship with my future, have a sense of security in the bank, and to do meaningful work." So the world is evidenced by the great resignation. The world is saying, I'm not doing this anymore the way I was doing it. Well, the reason that this is happening is because we have failed to explore and to apply this beautiful science of psychology. So our minds are our greatest asset, but if uninvested, it's an asset it's weak. And so the world is saying, I'm resigning from the way I'm doing life. And it's not the physical experience that they're in. It's not the external conditions for the most part. It's the internal conditions. I stay up at night thinking about two things. One is, can I make the right micro choices and invest in the way that I'm spending my time to be able to ring that bell for folks? Because this science is not overly complicated, but positioning the science and telling the stories and being in the right place at the right time to be able to capture the attention of as many people as we possibly can on how psychology works. That's it. And then the other thing that keeps me up at night is when I was 15, I was a mess. And so there's other 15-year-olds out there that are struggling. And so I wish that I had the awareness and the understanding of how to use my mind when I was 15. And so I think about those 15 to 19-year-old kids all across the world that are saying, "Hey, I'm a mess too." Say, shit, it's not that hard, but here's what you need. Here's what you need to invest in your psychology, and here's how to start.
Something that's come up on the show a few times is the idea of legacy. We've had guests who wrote books on it. Is there a certain value creation or something that Dr. Michael Gervais would want to be remembered for? You've already given so much value with your courses, with your podcast, Finding Mastery, Compete to Create, The Warrior's Edge. Is there a position or something that you'd like people to say that has created a legacy piece for you?
I don't think about that. I don't know. I really don't think about that. I am much more committed to solving what is important today, and I am not skilled at thinking about the future in that way, and I'm certainly not skilled about thinking about the future based on what people will think of me. For too long in my life, I was consumed with what people thought of me. This is one of the impetuses for the 15-year-old kid to be a mess. And so I am not interested in that. And so I don't say that callously, but it is a massive trap. I think it's a great constrictor for me and for most, I believe, to organize our life based on what others might think. And that's what legacy feels like to me. It's like, what are they going to think when I'm gone? What are they going to say when I'm gone? What's the legacy they'll leave behind? Well, I mean, so I don't spend much attention or time there. But I do have, when I do think forward, I think of the great opportunity that lies ahead of us as humanity is that we need to better understand how to have relationships with ourselves, relationships with each other, relationships with Mother Nature, and relationships with machines. The smartest machine is coming. And in 9 years, we will have a machine that is smarter than the smartest human. So we are pretty much failing at ground zero, our relationships with ourselves. We're not doing so great on relationship with others. Look what we've done to the planet. Holy shit, we're going to have smarter machines here. So the work that I'm deeply committed to is the relationship with self so that we can eventually have relationships with others, Mother Nature, and machines. So that's what I'm working towards. And I'm, again, not to be dismissive of legacy, because I think it holds power for some. It doesn't hold power for me.
That's great. Thanks.
And for a man who's really been at the forefront of high performance, elite performance for such a long time, and for someone that really understands how to train your mind to a high level to improve those mental capacities, as it were, as you've touched on today, we've learned loads from you, as have many. We always have a final question. We finish each and every one of these shows, Michael, and that question is, what does high performance mean to you?
Do you ask that to everyone?
I think all but one.
I think it was 161, yeah.
Yeah, and we were a bit gutted then with the track record and we were like, oh, that's a bit of a blemish. They won't even notice. But we've been doing it for a couple of years now, and that's kind of how we finish. Yeah, if we're going to write a book, we'd have to have something that everyone said.
That is awesome. Yeah, good. I can't wait to understand your definitions of it. So for me, high performance, let's pull it apart a little bit. Performance is the ability to express. And then, so high performance is the ability to express towards mastery. This is why I'm fascinated by the concept. Being able to perform is about expression, and being able to perform also has the ability to be able to express in a way that there's a time restricted, demanding environment. And so some people call it pressure, some people call it opportunity, some people call it challenge. So the idea of high performance is being able to meet the challenge and the opportunity at hand in a skillful way, and to be able to repeat that and set over multiple conditions. So for me, high performance is, if we're not careful, is a performative aspect of life as opposed to a expression of core principles, of core skills. And so I'm far more interested in the expressive part than the performative part.
He was thinking about that last night, Kieran.
Definitely. That is one of the best we've had.
Michael, mine is, and not to play on the raindrop analogy, we're Irish, so we can relate. It's going to be raining in about 10 minutes anyway. Presentness, and you kind of pulled it in earlier, but that's actually leaning into the philosophy that I've unpacked in your course as well. I think being present as a dad, as a husband, as a business partner, as someone speaking on a podcast, writing a blog, if I'm not all in, with what I'm doing, treating a patient, then the work or whatever that is suffers. So I really feel that that's what high performance is to me, to whatever I'm doing, to be locked in, focused, nothing else matters. That's when I give my best. So that's what it means for me anyway.
I love that piece from David. So I know that from working together for years, he's always tried to align with that. But I always feel the courage to pursue something that is bigger than you, and that can be a relationship, that can be a performance for an elite, an event, that can be a performance for a discussion, a communication. But the courage to pursue excellence in whatever relative field you're chasing, and to be able to do that on a consistent basis. And I think sometimes we often construe it as performing on a consistent basis, but I think showing up and having the courage to put yourself forward and having that authentic approach to knowing what's important relative to yourself is where we get that courage from. It's where we ultimately, I think, find high performance. So that's kind of where it lies for me.
I love all of that. So high performance, like if I drill down a little bit more here for you guys, is that the high performance that I'm interested in are the ones that happen on the razor's edge, where you're not quite sure if you have the capabilities to meet the demand. And it's in those moments, whatever that's a relative state and condition for each person. So high performance at one pass is like, are you the best in the world? Did you get a gold medal? Are you one of them? I'm much more interested in relative high performance. So whatever your relative capacity is, can you be close to it today? Can you be close to it tomorrow? Can you be in striking range again on the third day? And if you take it out of the craft nature of it, that's where I start to think about a living masterpiece as the expression of high performance. It's available each day, each moment of every person's life. And it's that artistry of eloquently working with the unfolding, unpredictable present moment. And so that eloquence really springs from at least two sources, which is having that foundational inner skills to be able to create and adjust to the unfolding moment, and then mapping that against the first principles that we talked about earlier. It's one thing to adjust to the present moment. It's another thing to adjust and at the sacrifice of integrity. And it's yet another and completely different to be able to eloquently adjust in alignment with first principles. And so, a living masterpiece for me is dynamic in nature. It's nonlinear, it's multifaceted, it's beautiful in that way. And it's an experience that is fluid with the unapologetic metronome of the present moment. And that's, for me, that's where I start going, oh man, there's so much potential for all of us. Are we organizing our inner life to run to the edges, to touch that edge where we can be on time with the unapologetic metronome of the present moment, and to do it in a way that we're expressing the most that we have in this as a resource base? That's what I'm interested in.
Just as an aside, as we're finishing, Michael, I didn't try throwing bricks upon my head, brick upon brick upon brick upon brick, like that video in your course. That was high performance, right? He took the extra brick at the end as well, right? That was courage.
Yeah. Wasn't that great? I know.
Look, we enjoyed that, Michael Gervais. Thanks very much for your time. That was a lot of gratitude going across the pond. We got loads from that. It's loads of fun. Appreciate it.
You guys are awesome.